All right, let's read chapter 4 of Shiloh. If you remember from yesterday's reading, we read chapter 3, and Marty decided to go on his dad's post office route with him. And as they were nearing the end, they got to Judd's house, and Marty got really mad at Judd. So here's the last little part. My stomach hurt for Shiloh. That dog, I say again, what's his name? Judd just laughs, and his teeth dark where the tobacco juice oozes through. Hasn't got a name. Never name any of my dogs. Dogs 1, 2, 3, and 4 is all. When I want 'em, I whistle. When I don't, I give 'em a kick. Get, scram, out. That's my dog's names. And he laughs, making the fat on his belly shake. I'm so mad I can't see. I know I should shut my mouth, but I goes on talking. His name is Shiloh, I say. Judd looks down at me and spits sideways. Studies me a good long time, and then shrugs as the Jeep moves forward again and on along the river. Chapter 4. Marty, Dad says when we're around the bend, sometimes you haven't got the sense to shut up. You can't go telling a man what to call his dog. But I'm mad too. Better than calling him Git and Scram. Judd Travers has the right to name his dog anything he likes or nothing at all, and you've got to get it through your head that that's his dog, not yours, and put your mind to other things. The Jeep bounces along for a good long mile before I speak again. I can't, Dad, I say finally, and this time his voice is gentle. Well, son, you've got to try. I eat my peanut butter and soda cracker sandwiches with Dad at noon, plus the zucchini bread Miss Ellison had left in her mailbox for him. And after all the Sears catalogs and mail is delivered, we head back to the Sisterville post office. I get my Coca-Cola at the gas station while Dad finishes up, and we start home. I forget all about looking for cans and bottles. The can I'm holding is the only one I got. Judd Travers goes hunting near every weekend, don't he? I asked Dad. I suppose he does. You can shoot at just about anything that moves. Of course not. You can only shoot at what's in season. I'm thinking how, about a year ago, I was fooling around up the edge and come across a dead dog, a dead beagle, with a hole in its head. Never said anything because that was what was there to say. Somebody out hunting got a dog by mistake, I figured. It happens. But the more I think on it now, I wonder if it wasn't Judd Travers shooting that dog on purpose, shooting one of his own dogs that didn't please him. Dad's still talking. We've got a new game warden in the county, and I hear he's plenty tough. Used to be a man could kill a deer on his own property anytime if that deer was eating his garden, warden would look the other way. But they tell me the new warden will fine you good. Well, that's the way it ought to be, I guess. What if a man shoots a dog? I ask. Dad looks over at me. Dogs aren't ever in season, son. In season, Marty. Now you know that. Well, what if a man shoots one anyway? That would be up to the sheriff to decide what to do, I guess. The next day I start early and set out on the main road to Friendly with a plastic bag and get me 11 aluminum cans, but that's all. Could walk my legs off for a year and not even have enough to buy half a dog. The questions I'd tried not to think about before come back to me now. Would Judd Travers want to sell Shiloh at all? And how much would he want for him if he did? And if I got Shiloh for my very own, how was I supposed to feed him? There aren't many leftover scraps or anything in our house. Every extra bit of pork chop or boiled potato or spoonful of peas gets made into soup. If we'd had enough money for me to have a dog or buy its food and pay for the vet and everything, I would have had one by now. Daryl Ann's been begging for a cat for over a year. It isn't that we're rock poor. Trouble is that Grandma Preston's got real feeble, and she's being cared for by Dad's sister over in Clarksburg. Have to have nurses all the time. Aunt Hetty goes out, and every spare cent we got goes to pay for Grandma's care. Nothing left over to feed a dog. But I figure to get to that problem. I figure to get to that problem later on. I wonder if maybe in time, if I never see Shiloh again, I'll forget him. And then I'm lying on the couch that night after everyone else has gone to bed, and I hear that far off sound again, like a dog crying. Not barking, not howling, not whining even, crying. And I get this awful ache in my chest. I wonder if it is a dog. If it's Shiloh. I know you want a dog, Marty. Ma says to me on Thursday, sitting at the kitchen table with the cardboard boxes all around her, folding a stack of letters and putting them into envelopes. Ma gets work to do here at home anytime she can. I wish we had money so every one of you kids could have a pet, but with Grandma seeming to need more care, we just don't, and that's that. I nod. Ma knows me better, and I know myself sometimes, but she don't have this straight. I don't want just any dog. I want Shiloh, because he needs me. He needs me bad. It's Friday morning when I hear the sound. Dad's off on the mail route. Darylyn and Becky's watching cartoons on the TV. Ma's out on the back porch washing clothes in the old washing machine that don't work. Only the wringer part works if you turn it by hand. I'm sitting at the table, eating a piece of bread, spread with lard and jam, when I hear the noise, and I know it's Shiloh. Only the softest kind of noise, and right close. I fold the bread up, jelly into the inside, stick it in my pocket, and go out the front door. Shiloh's under the sycamore, head on his paws, just like the day he followed me home in the rain. Soon as I see him, I know two things. One, Judd Travers has taken his dogs out hunting like he said, and Shiloh's run away from the pack. And two, I'm not going to take him back. Not now, not ever. I don't have time to think how I promised Judd if I ever saw Shiloh loose again, I'd bring him back. I don't even think what I'm going to tell Dad. All I know right then is that I have to get Shiloh away from the house where none of the family will see him. I run barefoot down the front steps and over to where Shiloh's lying, his tail just thumping like crazy on the grass. Shiloh, I whisper and gather him up in my arms. His body is shaking all over, but he don't try and get away, don't creep off from me the way he did that first day. I hold him as close and careful as I carry Becky when she's asleep, and I start off up the far hill into the woods carrying my dog. I know that if I see Judd Travers that very minute with his rifle, I'd tell him he'd have to shoot me before I'd ever let him near Shiloh again. There are burrs and sticks on the path just up the hill, and usually I wouldn't take it without sneakers, but if there's burrs and stickers in my feet, I hardly feel them. No, Judd Travers and his hounds won't be over here, 'cause this hill belongs to my dad. Get me as far as the shade bush next to the pine, and then I sit down and hug Shiloh. First time I really have him to myself. First time I can hug him, nobody looking, just squeeze his thin little body and pat his head and stroke his ears. Shiloh, I tell him as though he knows it's his name. Judd Travers is never going to kick you again. And the way his eyes look at me then, the way he reaches up and licks my face, it's like it seals the promise. I'd made a promise to Judd Travers and I wasn't going to keep, Jesus help me, but I'm making one to Shiloh that I will. God strike me dead. I set him down at last and go over to the creek for a drink of water. Shiloh follows along beside me. I cut my hands and drink, and Shiloh helps himself, lapping it up. What, now what? I ask myself. The problem is looking me square in the face. I gotta keep Shiloh a secret, that much I know, but I'm not going to keep him chained. Only thing I can think of is to make him a pen. Don't like the idea of it, but I'll be with him as much as I can. I take him back to the shade bush and Shiloh lays down. Shiloh, I say, patting his head, stay. He thumps his tail. I start to walk away, looking back. Shiloh gets up. Stay, I say again, louder, and point to the ground. He lays back down, but I know he's like to follow anyway. So I pull him over to the pine tree and take the belt off my jeans and loop it in the raggedy old collar Shiloh's wearing and fasten the belt to the tree. Shiloh don't like it much, but he's quiet. I got down the path, and every so often I turn around. Shiloh's looking at me like he won't never see me again, but he don't bark. Strangest thing I ever see in a dog, to be that still. Ma's still on the back porch when she washes. When she washes, it takes her near all day. Darylyn and Becky's stuck up to the TV, so I got to the shed by the side of the house and taken extra fencing Dad used when we had us more chickens. I take me a piece of wire too and go back up the hill. Shiloh's still there, and he don't try and get up while I was set to work. I string the fencing around the trunk of the tree of 3 small trees for corner posts, and then back to the pine tree again, where I fasten it with wire. Pen measures about 6 by 8 feet. I go back down to the shed again, and this time I get the old rotten planks Dad took out of the back steps when he put in the new. Pick me up an old pie tin too. I take the planks up to Shiloh's pen and make him a lean-to at one end to protect him from the rain. I fill the pie tin with water so he'll have something to drink. Last of all, I take the lard bread from my pocket and feed it to Shiloh in little pieces, letting him lick my fingers after every bite. I wrap my arms around him, pat him, run my hands over his ears, even kiss his nose. Bless me. I tell him about 1,000,000 times I love him as much as I love my ma. The worry part is whether or not he'll stay quiet. I'm hoping he will, 'cause he was a silent dog to begin with. But all the way back down the hill to the house, I put my fingers to my lips and turn back. Shh, I say. Shiloh don't make a sound, like he had the bark beat out of him when he was a pup, and it just never come back. I'm tense as a cricket that night. Tense when Dad drives up in his Jeep, afraid the dog will bark. Tense when Darylyn and Becky are out in the yard playing after dinner, squealing and yelling, afraid that Shiloh will want to get in on the fun and maybe dig a hole under the fence. He never comes. I manage to take a piece of potato and some cornbread up to him before it gets dark. I sit down in his pen and he crawls all over me, licking my face. If he'd been a cat, he would have purred. He was that glad to see me. Tell him I'm coming back tomorrow with some kind of leash for him. Tell him I'm going to run all over that hill, him and me, every day. Tell him he's my dog now, and I'm never going to let anybody hurt him ever again. And then I leave, wiring that fence good. I go home and I sleep a full night. First time in a long time. That's the end of chapter 4.